Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Chris Delay Failure Show. Failure Masterclass. It's a masterclass, isn't it, where we teach people how to fail.
Yeah, it can't be the failure show. That's just sad. It's got to be it's got to be a fail masterclass.
Right, it's the monthly series where you and I talk about game prototype ideas that didn't make it to the light of day and why they failed. Although we haven't spoken too much about why they failed. We've been picked up on that, so we'll return to that.
Yes, that'll be a good one this month, I think.
I don't even know what we're looking at this month. I'm quite excited. Then you, the person watching this video or listening to it, can head over to introversion.co.uk/prototypes and play all of the prototypes that didn't quite make it to air and see whether you can come up with some ideas of how to take them further. We ask for a $5 minimum donation, and everything that we get goes to War Child, which is an amazing charity helping children across the planet affected by war. So it's a great thing to do. Now, Christoph,
hello.
What are we looking at this week,
this month, mate? We're going back to space. Back to space. We're taking our third swing at the Space Factorio Architect idea, and we're going to go to a game called Deep Space Industrial.
Remind me, what were the other two?
Well, we had Order of Magnitude, what we've already done,
yeah.
And we had Spacebots, where we had the programmable robots. If you remember, where you were programming robots to mine an asteroid belt.
I kind of feel, looking at the comments and interest and things, I kind of feel like Spacebots was the one that's had the most number of people sort of prick up their ears a bit and go, it's interesting. Interesting idea that you guys have thrown in the bin.
Yeah, because it sort of blended Factorio style industry and automation with like a programming game, didn't it? Not entirely successfully, we have to admit, unfortunately, which is why it was in the Fail Masterclass. But it did blend them a little bit. It kind of blended them, and then the blending broke. The blending machine sprung a leak, and then the contents were inedible.
Right.
And then the lid came off, and it just sprayed all over the roof.
Covered all over the kitchen.
Right, and then we had to clean up for, I don't know.
We left it for the other housemates,
so we
for
dumped
Tom and
it.
Johnny.
So we just moved. Then we just moved house.
We moved house
because we didn't want to have to clean the kitchen.
Yeah, but we only moved to the other side of the street so that we could,
Yeah, and then we bought the same blender again.
Yeah, and we put almost the same ingredients in.
It keeps happening. This is the third time I've bought that fucking blender, and every time it breaks. So, what do we have? We have a gas giant of some kind, and we have a sort of an asteroid belt here. See little asteroids?
Yeah.
And we have little mineral patches on the asteroid belt, and we have kind of a planet. So, the thinking here is this is once again a game about factory building and automation and construction in space and mining space, with a kind of capitalist edge to it, with a kind of profiteering, make money from the asteroid belts type view on things.
Right.
So Deep Space Industrial kind of comes from a genuine company that existed. Or actually, there's a little selection of companies existed that had various names like Deep Space something Industries. They don't exist anymore because they sprang into existence a little bit too early.
Well, these real
companies, whose business model was to mine the asteroid belt in the solar system.
Right.
But they're just a little bit ahead of the curve, if you get what I mean, because we're not quite there yet with the technology. But probably, I don't know, 30 or 40 years, I could see that being viable. Anyway, should we look at the game?
Let's look at it.
So let's do some preliminary mining, and I can tell you what's going on. This thing here, you can tell this is an unfinished prototype. That's a trading post, right? A trading post is essentially a kind of tech gateway where we can order materials. Okay, so this is one star system. We can order a bunch of materials, and they'll arrive through. It's like a delivery post. It's like an interplanetary post box.
Yep.
And I can also create astronauts from there as well. I can summon workers to come and work for me. So we've got some patches of minerals around here. We've got some silicate. So I can hire some astronauts. Here you go. These are our guys. We've got some astronauts which I've created, kind of the same way. You remember, like in Prison Architect, where you could just create a guard and you could click and they would just appear, and the game would just go pop, and a guard just appeared. I kind of followed the same principle. Like originally, I had it so that you could summon these guys. And they would arrive in like a transport ship. Right, and they would pull up in like a transport ship and get out, and it was far more realistic. And it just gets in the way, so I just kind of took a huge shortcut. And just had it so you could summon them immediately. So these guys will sit there and they'll kind of zap this asteroid with little lasers, and you can see little bits of valuable minerals coming off. Right, this is the beginning of our operation. So this mineral that they're mining, silicate. You see up here there's a market button, and I've got a list of all the commodities that I can buy and sell.
Right, yep.
So silicate is in the list. Here it is as a mineral. And it's worth 50 credits a pop. Right? The amount of money that we have is up here, 990,000 credits. Right? We start with 1 million credits.
Right.
So if I can get a hold of this silicate...
Just a small $1 million loan.
Yeah, just a little startup fund. So the idea is like we're like a terraforming industry. You know, we're like the first arrival at this star system, here to exploit its natural asteroid belt. So if I bring some gatherers in, these are more guys in suits. They're not really astronauts. They're more like blue collar workers. You know.
Yeah.
They're more like
they kind of are
industry workers.
Yeah,
but they're from an era when like astronaut is not a big deal, you know. They're like oil rig workers. It's the same sort of level of technology.
I'm sure some oil rig workers would take great offence.
Yeah, probably.
Well, I know
we have our usual trick of offending at least one group each time we make a video, don't we?
They're blue collar heroes.
Yeah, so they'll kind of grab all this silicate and take it back to our trading post. Right, and start selling it. And thus begins our exploitation of this star system.
Yeah.
There we go. So they can load materials up into the trading post, and this is like the cash value of selling all that stuff, right? So it doesn't just get sent immediately. It has like a sort of a send cycle, right, where it kind of warps everything that you've dropped off in the trading post back to some other distant star system, and then you get paid for it. And so we're actually starting to make money. Now, this is a good starting point, but really, we're not really going to get very far with this, right? There's a real limit to how much we can do here. And we're not really making very much money because 50 credits a pop isn't very much for silica, and our astronauts all cost money as well, so it's costing us money to do this. So what we really want to be doing is kind of automating the process of gathering minerals. Now, once we've started to automate this process, we can actually start to make more and more expensive materials out of this, right? Because this is just a raw mineral, and raw mineral is not really particularly valuable, but the stuff that we can turn it into is much more valuable. So I can see over here there's some like ice embedded into this asteroid.
Right.
Now, I know from playing this game that, and just in general how it's going to be, that water in space is actually going to be one of the most valuable materials you can get a hold of.
Right.
Because water is kind of the beginning of everything. It's like the beginning of a whole process of chain of equipment and stuff that you can make. So is
there any truth in that in the real world, or is that just your...
Absolutely, because water is vital for human survival.
Right.
It's also just for drinking. It's also where astronauts are going to get all their oxygen from by processing and electrolyzing water. And it's also can be separated out into hydrogen and oxygen and then burnt as rocket fuel.
Right, okay.
And so those three uses, it's also a really good radiation shield, and it's perfect for cooling. And it's basically vital for everywhere where humans are going to be. And it's going to be really hard to find because there are going to be planets that are going to have water on them, but not many. It's not like you're going to be able to just find a lot of water. And even if you find a planet that's covered in oceans, the amount of energy that's required to lift that water off the planet's surface and out into space is always going to be huge, just like it is on Earth. So if you can find frozen water in asteroid belts, it's going to be a huge money spinner for you. So we're quite lucky that we've started with some right here. But instead of getting my guys to mine it themselves, I'm going to actually start doing it automatically. So I've got a bunch of buildings that I can make here under the Buildings tab. And I'm going to start by placing some of these down. Let's go like that, I reckon. Now to make that happen, I need to hire some guys to build it for me. There we go. So you can see we've got some different types of astronauts appearing now, right? These guys have got like construction kits on them. Now, in order to make these things, right, these buildings that we're building, it tells you here what the ingredients are. Like, to make a mining rig, you need to have a lot of metal and a lot of mechanisms and a lot of circuits, right?
Yeah.
You with me? Now, all of that all has to come from the marketplace, okay? So all of that is being purchased on the marketplace. So all this metal that they're using to buy it, metal costs us 60 credits a pop, right? Mechanisms on the list cost us 180 credits a pop, you know. Circuits 110. So it's costing us lots of money, and we don't have any local facilities. So the only way that we're managing to do all this is that these guys are actually buying all this stuff directly from the trading post.
Yeah.
Right. So we have our first visitor, this guy here. This is a drone or robot from some other company that's operating in the same mining belt. Right? You see him?
Yeah, I see
Just
him.
flying past us. They've got their own trading post. They're like another company. Right? They're probably on the other side of the asteroid belt somewhere, doing the same sort of thing. You with me? You still there?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I am.
You sure?
I am. Yeah, no, I'm definitely here. I'm just letting you.
Oh, good.
You know, I'm letting you do all the explanation.
Yeah.
All
right.
But you've got to remember that I don't like this game.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I can tell.
So it's difficult.
I remember.
And I'm kind of letting you do your demo so that
so we can
the rest
talk
of the
about
internet, will come to my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think they will, mate. Not by the time we're finished. Right, so I've got my mining rig and I've got some solar panels to power it. Everything needs electricity. So what's going to happen is these mining rigs are now going to sit there and just churn away. There's no art in the game or anything, so they're just going to sit there and churn away on the ground, producing mining ice for us. I can make a little silo in the middle. Now this is where I can start to connect things up. So if I go to connect, I can run these little pipes from here to here, and you'll start to see the true beginnings of our Factorio world. Right,
yeah.
Where we're starting to connect different parts together. We're still only mining ice, which is still only the base level material. But instead of selling the ice directly, I'm going to at least process it into water. And I might process it further depending on how much time we have. So I can quite easily turn this ice into water, right, which increases our profit margin by 50%. But I can process it further into, I was telling you earlier that you can separate water out into hydrogen and oxygen.
Yeah.
Through electrolysis.
See, because I think, right here, this is some of the stuff that I just have like a bit of a gut negative reaction to.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Because it's the fact that there hasn't been a lot of skill required to move up that value chain.
Not yet, there hasn't. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But we're still processing iron like in Factorio. The game we looked at last time that was Voxel Factorio. Same sort of thing, right? We're mining coal from the ground and we're mining iron ore from the ground. There is a real
difference, right? And the difference is because I do get excited about that Voxel Factorio. The difference is there is this kind of, for me anyway, you can see the processing plant that you've created.
Yeah.
Whereas and the look of that processing plant is I find it a lot more satisfying.
Yeah.
Than this scale, because you're building on one asteroid, and then you're going to build on another asteroid and another asteroid. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like the complexity of, what I think is the real genius of Factorio is that conveyor belt mentality, of everything running together. And I don't think we quite got there with this, You know, it feels a lot more like each processing plant is a kind of discrete entity in its own right. You know, and there's also the absence of constraint in the, you know, what you've built on that asteroid, I think is going to be very similar to what you build on another asteroid, you know?
Well, okay. Do you want me to finish the demo, or shall I just stop now?
No, I'm
fucking
just
blow my brains out.
What do you want? What do you want? Do you want me to talk, or do you want me to sit in silence? Which one is it?
I have only just started. All right.
Right, go on then.
Fucking hell. Well.
You've broken it.
Yeah. Doesn't fit on the screen. This list. It's because we're recording it. We're recording at 1080p, and I need the bottom of this list.
Oh shit.
That's a bit of a problem.
Well, it's good. That's not actually happened in one of our prototypes.
No,
yeah.
This is the first time we've had a critical
hit
failure.
a proper bug. And there you go. This is the reason why. It's because the lift goes off the bottom of the screen, so we canned it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to fix that. Let me just. All right, so let's save the game then. All right. God, it's been quite a long time since I've dealt with this code base.
Try scroll bar, open brackets,
Right,
close brackets,
shoot him off for a second.
Dot add. Right, have you fixed it?
Yeah, I think so. There we go. Fits on screen.
You're good, aren't you? I didn't even see how you did it.
Yeah. All right, where was I? Yes, so I was just explaining then that I don't think you're right. I think what you're getting at is that there's a complexity that comes from Factorio's conveyor belts and inserters. And this game isn't using conveyor belts, we're using these lines.
Yeah.
Right? So you get something different, but you get a different kind of complexity. You get something different because the complexity is still there. You just and the level that we're constructing at is very similar as well. So,
no, it's not complexity. That's not right. It's not the complexity. It's something about like
there we go.
The structure. You know, like the I'm reticent to use the word physical structure because it's a game, but the physical structure of the physicality of that which you are building.
Yes.
Being actually quite important, you know, to that feeling of satisfaction and.
Yeah, but I think you can get there without necessarily having conveyor belts, right? And I think we're going to get there in the process of building this factory. And I'm going to ask you at the end whether you still think that the game doesn't have the richness that you expect, that you think would be necessary. Right. So, what was I doing? I was doing this, wasn't I?
Just so that everybody knows, right? Every one of these prototypes, Chris has culled himself, right? I don't phone him up. It's not like I'm the big bad wolf in this.
Well, yeah, sort of, but I kind of agree with you, but this game doesn't work for different reasons, you know. Right, here we go. So I've got my little mini factory working now. So I've got ice coming in from my mining rig and going into this little temporary buffer. Yeah. I've got 6 furnaces queued up in a box, and the furnaces are melting the ice using fuel. Okay, so fuel is something that we're ordering from the marketplace once again. It's down here. It's 10 credits a pop. It's some sort of oxygenized metallic mineral that burns nicely.
Yeah.
And these furnaces are all filling up with now water, which is the product that we ultimately wanted. So I just need to have a sort of output silo here. So I should have done that in advance. Right. So each time I request something, my guys run back to the trading post and buy all the materials that they need. And you can see that we're actually pushing off the edge of this asteroid now as well. Like some of this stuff has been built on gantries, right? Yeah. Because there's a surface that we can build on, and then once you run out of space, you just have to build a bit more on the edge. Oh, you fucking bastard! I should have turned pirates off before I started playing.
He's come in and nicked your water.
That's a pirate, and he's come in and nicked our most valuable stuff, which at the moment is ice. All right, so I just want somewhere for this to go, basically. Here we go. So once that's finished, I'm going to output like this, I think.
I love the look of the astronauts.
Yeah, they're cool, aren't they?
I think it's really good. I was going to say it before, like the little guys with like a blue storage container sellotaped to their back.
Yeah, those are your couriers, right? They're the ones that move stuff
yeah.
around, you know? It does have a big storage box. These are the guys that build things. You know, it's a little bit like the alien mech suit. You know?
Yeah, that's right.
Get away from her, you bitch!
But it really does convey this kind of exploited worker.
Yeah.
You know, the idea that
they just have to hang out in space.
And you know, we're just going to sellotape this to your back.
Yeah,
you know? That's...
Yeah, absolutely. Right, so we're making water, so I can actually tell if I tell my guys if I tick the unload box on there, those dudes that were hanging around with the big storage box will just unload that silo whenever there's stuff in there, and they'll take it to the market and sell it. Yeah, so you see now we're actually making a ton of money now, right? For the first time, all that water's actually worth quite a lot.
Yeah.
But you might also notice a slight subtlety that there's actually a limit to how much you can dump into this trading post to sell. So this fills up, and we've actually filled it already with water, and it only cycles a maximum of once every 30 seconds or something. So once you've hit that limit, you can't actually increase your profit anymore beyond that point, right? Because the market doesn't want to be flooded with huge quantities of water because it's still quite a low tier material, you know. And on top of that, if we look in the marketplace, now that we've been selling water quite a lot, if you can see here, there's like a little -1% next to water. Right. So the market price of water is starting to go down now.
Yeah.
Because we're flooding the market. We're starting to flood the market of water. And the more we do that, the more the price of water will crash. So silica is the material we've been bankrolling ourselves on. That's actually gone down 14% since we started.
Yeah.
And on top of that, all the things that we've been buying, like metal, have gone up in price. Right? So anything that we're buying as part of our process is now up a little bit. All right. Let's save that like that. Let's come back to maybe this one. Yeah. All right. So here's a game that I've been playing for quite a lot longer. So this asteroid is the large version of what we were just building. Right. Mm-hmm. This is a mining rig that's still mining away at a chunk of ice, which is heavily diminished, melting it down into water. This is our in-between product. And then that water has been electrolyzed in a row of electrolyzers here into hydrogen and oxygen, which I'm then separating at the end. Right? Hydrogen is taking this route, and now I have a huge deuterium factory. Deuterium is the fuel that we need in the fiction of this world, our sort of high-speed fusion engines, like the sort of things that get you between planet systems.
Right.
So deuterium is very valuable indeed. We can produce it in large quantities just from starting with ice as our raw material and putting it through this huge process. And you can see that I'm stacking up a huge silo here of the deuterium.
Yeah.
The oxygen that we get out of that process runs on a different path and ends up over here. Now, in this particular game world, we've actually hit the limit of our trading post, and we're not selling through the trading post anymore because it's too slow and inefficient. So instead, we have these ship docks. Now, you're going to have to use your imagination here because I don't have any art for this, but that is a ship. So what's happened is that this outpost is now sufficiently large that it's almost a gas station for spaceships.
Yeah.
So spaceships are coming and going and landing on these 3 ship docks. Right. So you see that yellow landing pattern there tells us that another customer is arriving.
Right.
Let's wait. Here comes one. Right. So this guy, he's got a tank of. This is what he has on board. Right. He's got a tank of water, a lot of oxygen, a lot of deuterium for his engines, and a bunch of hazardous waste on board. So he's going to arrive and buy all of our raw materials, right? So you see all of our raw materials flooding in through these side pipes.
Yeah.
Right? And this is how much we're billing him, right? So you see that his bill is just going up and up and up. It is basically a petrol station, right?
Yeah, I liked it. When you
they want to refill their water, they want to refill their oxygen and their deuterium.
Deep space truck stop.
Yeah, deep space industrial, right? So we're exploiting the asteroid base for the purposes of monetary waste. So I've just loaded the save game with that place that we were just building.
Yeah.
So I've built the first like sensor tower, right? Because this is all we can see, right? You see this circle around us. This is the only area that we really have visibility of, right? So you can see that the asteroids kind of turn. We know there's an asteroid there, but we can't really see it. And then beyond that point, we just have like these little markers, right? We know there's something there, but we don't know what it is. Okay. But by building that sensor tower, I'm able to reveal where those guys came from. And you can see that there's something going on over here, right?
Lots of red dots.
Yeah, so we know that's somebody else's mining operation, right? They've got their own kind of, whatever this is, some sort of mothership. And these are all probably like people mining or robots mining or something like that. So you can see there's kind of a fleet of enemy ships heading our way.
Yeah.
So I've managed to make a little bank of railguns. They're sort of slow to track. They're like big, heavy, slow to track things.
Right.
So I think we'll have some gun turrets as well. All right. Looks like it's down to the railguns then. All right. So they'll track their targets and try and fire at them. There we go. That's working.
Yeah. That definitely is working.
It's because they've got, so it's 4 shots at a time. So 4 hits is enough to one shot these guys. See, so what these pirates will do is they'll basically fly through our facility looking for any silos with valuable materials in. So that like the most valuable materials that you have are the ones that they'll go for and try and steal. There we go. That actually worked quite effectively, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Should we ever talk about ships?
Yeah, let's.
So there's kind of there's the industry and capitalism side to this game, which is all about profiting and building up your income and bank balance, and making a sort of successful industrial center, right? Like the save game that we looked at earlier. Like there's like a really basic facility that makes a bit of money, right? After a little bit longer of playing, you end up with something that looks a bit more like this, right? A little bit more built up, right?
Yeah.
Every one of these asteroids is now being pressed into service, mining and processing, and then we have a kind of, this is like a huge ship dock.
Right.
So we're really suffering from lack of art at this point. Like I've seen so many blue boxes.
Yeah. No.
But,
they look good because they're a certain size, aren't they? And you can tell.
Yeah, and I imagine these has been just like relatively small ships that are just coming into land, and this is just like a space platform, that people are coming into land on. But I kind of had this idea that there should be some larger aim as well than just capitalism, right? Than just making profit.
Yeah.
And this is another recurring theme in a lot of our attempts at making a factory game. Like if you remember Spacebots, there was a kind of alien squid that would attack you and blow you up every now and then.
Yeah, the structure of these games are all quite similar, I think.
Yeah, they are. So I hit on this idea that there's actually an evacuation going on, right? That this little planet here is actually a planet in its own right with people living on it. But that this star system is destined for destruction, right? But the idea is that you're kind of having to evacuate, right, this planet. So it means lifting everyone off the planet's surface with shuttles. So these are actually shuttles that are going down to the planet's surface, right? They're doing entry burns and landing on the planet's surface and lifting people off a few hundred at a time. And then they get brought over to our facility, which originally was just a gas station, but is starting to become a bit of a kind of a landing pad for evacuation, right? Because we're making all the oxygen and water and fuel that we need already. But instead of using it for profiteering and for selling on to traders, we're now using it for powering up our shuttles to get people away from the star system. And you can see there's actually a little bit of a path, a little bit of a production line of shuttles that are kind of shooting off to the right, leaving the star system. But it doesn't have to be just shuttles, right? It can be much bigger ships. So here's an example of a much bigger ship that we've built. Now this, are you seeing this? So this particular ship, this particular ship was built in the same way as everything else, right? We have the ship menu and we have all these components that we can build. And so back in our home star system, we planted down all of these storage tanks and all of these engines and all of these solar panels and built a kind of interstellar evacuation ship. This particular ship has enough space for 13,000 people in cryosleep, right? So this huge batch of green boxes in cryobays, these are like lines of cryo-frozen humans evacuating the planet, right? So you can imagine there's like a huge production chain that's gone into this, right? Like if you look at
I like this. This is when I think it started to have a little bit of a direction and a purpose, like the setting up the interstellar truck stop is kind of your opening moves, and then and then suddenly there's this event that requires an evacuation, which then results in a more complex design. You're designing these ships that are going to have to, because they're going to be spending decades probably in interstellar space, right? So without any humans on board.
So that's exactly it. So this line here, this represents all of our ships in transit. This ship's been in transit for 26 years.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
With 13,000, you can see it's doing a deceleration burn now. Right?
Yeah,
So these ships, there's no warp drive or anything. They're just using deuterium in their fusion engines. A large fusion engine is powered by deuterium fuel, which is an entirely plausible science fiction technology. And so in the first half of their journey, they accelerate, and then around halfway they start coasting, and then they have to decelerate before they get to the other end. Right? And so all these tanks have to be full of all the water and oxygen and energy that we need to make it. And our engines need to have all the deuterium fuel. So all that facility that we'd built previously for the purposes of resupplying people's ships is suddenly turned to this more humanitarian purpose. Here's another one. I never did entirely figure out what the perfect design was, because you have that problem. Like, you can see there's I got as far as doing like calculations of the mass of the ship. Right, so this thing has a mass of 3,200 tons. You can see its mass is slowly decreasing because it's burning deuterium fuel at quite a rate, and it's also using up oxygen and water to keep the cryobay powered. But there's a sort of terrible synergy here whereby the more fuel you take, the faster you can go because you can burn your engines for longer. But you also take on the risk, like if you don't have enough fuel to fully decelerate at the other end, you end up overshooting the target at 0.1 times the speed of light or something. And
that was the other interesting realization for me about interstellar travel, is that there are only sort of two modes, right? There's accelerate and then decelerate.
Yeah.
It's not as if you accelerate.
You can coast.
You can coast, but you probably wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't. I mean, you'd coast for a bit.
I can tell you when you coast. You coast when you haven't bought enough fuel. Right?
Yeah.
So you have to have enough. So you can only use half your fuel to accelerate, and then you have to coast, no matter how. And then you have to wait, and then when you reach the point, you can actually see. I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but this flashing yellow dot here, this is the ship that we're currently looking at.
Yeah.
Right, moving slowly, and this red dotted line is our deceleration distance. Right. So when we switch our engines into reverse, that is how far we will travel before we've stopped. You can see it's absolutely sodding huge. So the point when that line hits the destination is when we have to switch our engines into reverse.
Yeah.
And not a moment later. The game does a lot of these. The game has an autopilot, right? So the game will do that for you. And it will tell you when you should switch your engines around. Right?
Yeah. But this was also something that I kind of felt as if this was a good idea that wasn't quite executed properly, like the idea of building and configuring a ship is interesting to me, like Kerbal, right? Obviously, like Kerbal.
Yeah.
But the difficulty here is how you then fairly apply kind of pressure to that design, in a way that is repeatable and makes sense. Because we had a few ideas, didn't we, about like, do you put shielding on it because you might get a meteorite strike? Yeah, you might, but you might not. It's very difficult. But by putting the shielding on,
it would change your balance, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that more complexity would come in that area if we worked in that area. Like for example, I did get as far as doing the concept of a hydrogen scoop, right?
Yeah.
So here's a ship. I remember this save game. It's a giant mess. I just need to launch this. Here's the ship still in the home system, right? This is the ship that we're building. So my thinking was that you would design your ships, right, in the home system like this, and you would launch them. And when you were confident that you had a reliable design, you would then tell your shipyard to do the same design again, so that you see it flying off.
Yeah.
And so you would go to your shipyard and say, build that whole thing again, and your workmen would all suddenly spring into life. And now, of course, the market can't give you all the parts that you need anymore, right? You now have to be producing everything locally. So where's that thing that just launched? Where have you gone? Here we go. So I was saying that this is an example of a bigger ship, but this ship doesn't have enough fuel to make the journey deliberately. Right? It's a huge ship, but to save on mass and thereby to give us a faster acceleration, we've not brought enough fuel, and instead we've brought a hydrogen scoop at the front. Right? So this thing is projecting this huge magnetic field out in front of the ship, and it's scooping up interstellar hydrogen as we fly, and you can see it's actually, this is it here. So using all the same mechanics of the game that existed in the star system when we were mining the asteroid belt, we're now mining raw hydrogen from space as we travel. And in fact, the faster we travel, the more hydrogen we'll scoop up with our hydrogen scoop. And then that hydrogen then filters into these refineries, the exact same refinery setup that we had back in our starbase, and processes it into the deuterium fuel and dumps that output into our fuel tanks. Right?
Yeah, they're very cool, aren't they?
Yeah, so this is kind of this ship is starting to tend towards self-sufficiency, right? So rather than taking everything with you at the beginning of the journey, you take enough to get going, right? And then you produce, so in this case, we're self-sufficient for fuel, and we can just run indefinitely now on fuel. When we're in interstellar flight, solar panels don't do anything, right? Because we're nowhere near a star. So we have to bring with us our engines when they're powered up generate electricity, but then if you turn all the engines off, you don't have any power. And so we have to bring with us these radioactive thermoelectric generators. That's what these are. So these are we had these same things in order of magnitude. These are thermocouple devices, right? It's a giant chunk of radioactive material with a thermocouple, and the temperature difference is used to generate electricity.
Yeah.
It's a great idea for long-term power in deep space, but it also glows bright green to signify that it's irradiating everything around it.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So and that's why it's at the back of the ship, right? Because if these radioactive generators are near the cryopods, you'll slowly lose people to radiation poisoning in your cryopods, right? So we're self-sufficient on fuel from our hydrogen scoop, but the hydrogen scoop, I didn't mention the hydrogen scoop uses an absolute ton of electricity, and that's the reason why we had to bring our own separate set of radioactive power generators, but they've got to be built away from the cryopods so you don't poison everyone. And then, in theory, I never got this far, but your cryopods should be exporting a load of used water and oxygen, shouldn't they?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Sorry, water and carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide, yeah.
So we should be able to get water out of these cryobays that's from urination, and you should be getting carbon dioxide that's breathed out, and then that should be coming back into a different factory chain that's reprocessing that back into drinking water and oxygen once again, right? And I even started thinking that eventually you would maybe take some astronauts with you that would be in the control center, right, in the bridge.
Yeah.
And they would be able to come out in their little spacesuits. You'd have to turn the engines off, right? It wouldn't work if they were accelerating. But as long as you are coasting, even if you're coasting at 90% the speed of light, your astronauts can go out and do a spacewalk, right, and do emergency repairs on the ship whilst it was flying through space. But
it's nuts, that, isn't it?
I never got that far.
It's utterly nuts. You could be going 90%, or you put down 3 point. Well, I mean that's not real physics, right? But
yeah, I've broken physics here.
Yeah. But you could be going 95% the speed of light, and as far as you were concerned, it would be like not moving at all.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you would just feel like you're on a space station that was completely stationary. Yeah, you wouldn't be seeing anything.
Time and things would be changing for you than they would for other people, but other than that, you wouldn't really know. Yeah, you see, it felt like we were sort of touching on an idea, a good idea of. I mean, it's a bit like
this stuff's fucking great. I love this stuff. I'm really sad that we couldn't turn this into a good game, and particularly because it's backed up by the kind of the industry side back in the home system, like this whole Factorio industry side where you're building up. At first, you're building up and profiting, but then eventually you're turning that to a production line that lets you build starships. I imagine I imagine you just churning out. Yeah, I imagine you churning out like 10 of these, 50 of these, 100 of these. After your production line was built up, and because my thinking was that you'd have like 1 million people to get off this planet. Like 1 million people on board this planet, and they're all going to die. In a certain period of time. Like the concept of a mag launch, right? A mag accelerator, right? So this is like this is a ship here that I've designed.
It's a railgun, right?
That's right. This is a railgun ship. So its engines are fired, but it's not launching. Launch. There you go. So this ship has got a bunch of fusion engines and a bunch of mag accelerators on the front and back, right? It's a bunch of electromagnets aligned. And then this part of the arrangement is the space station that's local, right? So that part doesn't move. Our ship will accelerate forward, and then when it hits the mag launch, it'll get like an absolutely enormous burst of acceleration, hopefully.
If it works. Just grip it. I think they use it for roller coasters as well, don't they?
There you go.
Yeah.
So that was a mag launch, right? That might have been a bit quick for you to notice. So the point is that ship is already going at a third the speed of light by the time it leaves the star system, right? And now it can just burn conventional fuel. So we've saved the need for a bunch of fuel on board the ship, you know. Mm-hmm. So by upgrading our home system with a facility that's, you know, ready to launch ships, we've made our process a lot better. But it's worth mentioning, absolutely no help at the other end, right? You can't slow down with a mag launch that doesn't exist. So like the other end of the system looks like this, right? So this is the idea that this is the system where we're going to, right? This is New Terra. This is the planet that we're all heading to. And you can see here's our star system. This is our home system in the top left, right? About to be destroyed by this apocalyptic vacuum collapse, right? That's just sweeping across the galaxy. And these yellow dots are all of our ships in transit. You know, it's the same screen basically. And so you can kind of see what's already there. These are the things we already have here. So this planet starts empty at the beginning of the game, right? Oops. Colony. So these are all the materials that we have here. So I kind of started work on this screen as well, where you could kind of start to colonize this planet at the other end, you know?
Yeah.
But just somehow, again, doesn't quite gel. You know, when it's all tied together, it just doesn't hold together. You know, this is the vacuum collapse. That's it appearing in our home system.
Yeah, that's it. Just destroying.
So my thinking was that you have 200 years, right? That was my thinking. You've got a 200-year countdown before this unstoppable universe-changing event sweeps across your star system and wrecks everything. And that's how long you have to build your factory up and evacuate the planet, you know, and proper apocalyptic stuff.
And I think, did you just touch on the galaxy map there? Did you flick that up?
It's another.
So I remember that as well.
Another area that doesn't really exist.
Yeah, well, that's where it kind of got a little bit more because the problem, you know, when you build a game which is designed around engineering and building things and making meaningful choices, there has to be some sort of resistance to that, you know.
Yeah.
And I like the galaxy map because that's the kind of thing where you can say, okay, well, this system's got water abundant, you know. That system's got iron abundant, but is a little bit further away, you know. And that's when you look at that, you start thinking, okay, well, my strategy for evacuating people from this point to this point is going to be different from my strategy for evacuating people in a different way.
Yeah.
And
this is real. This is real endgame stuff.
Yeah.
This is really where I saw the end game. I saw the end game being, this is humanity, right? This is the solar system. You can see that we've colonized quite a lot of nearby stars within sort of 10 to 20 light years. But it's not like Star Trek, you know. We're still only really got like 4 star systems that we've actually colonized. And my thinking was that this vacuum collapse event that would probably originate as some sort of weapons test or some sort of high energy, it's almost like a Trinity style atom bomb test, you know, that's gone wrong, and now it's expanding at the speed of light. And it would emerge from like over here somewhere, like there'd be a secret military base at this star system. And there's just this vacuum collapse effect spreading out from that star system, slowly gobbling everything up. So nowhere's really safe. And in kind of 100 years' time, our own star system will be destroyed, right? And the evacuation of the home star system will be a major part of the game. But you're not really there. Like, you're just on the edge. You're kind of, like, the way I saw the game working is that you're really kind of here. Like, you're like one of these truck stops on the edge of humanity. But all of humanity is kind of moving away from that vacuum collapse that can't be stopped. Yeah.
So what did kill it for you?
I don't know. I always say that, don't I? I don't know. It's obvious. We always joke about the fact that you fucking hate space mining games, right? And
I do. I don't like the initial phase of this.
Yeah, well,
it kind of leaves me cold.
I
the,
fucking love it. I absolutely love it. And playing it again now, it's the same as like that space. It's the same as that Voxel Factorio. I feel like I could play it for hours and just build factories everywhere. And the biggest break in the design is that we started out with it being a sort of capitalism-driven game, right? It started out being your aim is to maximize profit in this marketplace using local resources. And then I tried to graft in this evacuation apocalypse idea and shift your production into that. And the two didn't mix together at all well.
Right.
Because you're in the event of a kind of apocalyptic evacuation, maximizing your profits doesn't seem to match somehow. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like the two sides don't really fit very well together. So the idea was that you would be like some private company and that you would be profiteering from extracting everyone from this planet. And I don't know. There's kind of like as with all Factorio games, there's a fiddliness to it as well that I kind of really didn't like.
Yeah.
There's a certain fiddliness when you realise that you've run out of electronic circuits and you don't have any electronic circuit production locally, and you kind of have to scramble to build a little electronic circuit factory somewhere. And it's kind of not fun. Some of that side isn't fun somehow. So you could say that's equivalent to like not quite delivering on the factory automation side of the game. I think that's what it is. I think that its big objective of like flying ships to the other star system doesn't really connect very well to the industry exploitation mining side.
Absolutely.
They just don't fit. It's like two games rammed together.
Yeah, exactly. It does feel like that, doesn't it? It doesn't. If you said, I want to make a game about building interstellar colony ships and the successful transport of humans between systems, interstellar industrial is not that game. It feels as if it's been layered on.
Yeah.
And I think I'd like to play that game. I think that game exists, but
I obviously started out there. I started out with just the industry side, and it didn't feel like it was enough. I think that would have been a game, and I think that probably would have worked. But I felt like as soon as I started doing the shipbuilding side, like where you can build a ship in your home system, I immediately felt drawn to that. Right? I immediately felt drawn to this. Right? I really want to build big interstellar ships. I want it to be focused on the resources that these interstellar ships use. And I kind of dreamed that one day it wouldn't just be cryo-frozen humans. It would be an actual populated generation ship, with huge gardens growing food and stuff. It would be like.
But your refusal to make another colony sim.
I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be dealing with the actual colony itself, other than as just people that moved around. It wouldn't be like Prison Architect, because there's 13,000 people on this ship. I'm talking about ships that have tens of thousands of people.
I felt as if to simulate an interstellar ship, we needed to have failures, on the ship, right? Because there aren't that many environmental factors, that just happen to your ship in space, right? There's, I don't know what there is. There's not much, right? But what there is the failure of your systems for one reason and another, right?
Yeah.
And this game doesn't simulate that. It assumes that, once you put down an engine, the engine will work perfectly for the entire time. There's not going to be an electrical fault that results in a fire.
You don't have any maintenance requirements on the ships.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel as if, isn't that what drives us to make ships in a certain way? That.
And that would have been where I went next. I would have had I would have had reliability issues that force you to have little robot teams, and I would have done things like a radiation belt that you have to fly through, or a meteor shower. And then in the event of like a live colony, you would have, over a 22-year flight, you would have quite serious disagreements, I imagine, about how resources should be allocated, and potentially even sabotage and sort of social unrest.
Yeah,
You know.
and that's that would be my natural inclination to take an interstellar shipbuilding game. Would be in that direction.
Yeah.
Because similar to PA, your
The
population.
thing is, it's not a shipbuilding game unless you have to build the factories and the facilities and the resource production that build the ship beforehand. That was the whole thinking, wasn't it? That this factory that you're building is a key part. Like that ship that's just arrived only arrived because of everything I'd built in this system. And the fact that all the raw materials that are needed for that ship and all the fuel and all the materials and all the people have come from the planet. I think I got bored of it as well. I think that's that's got to be said. Because I think this was a long one. I spent a good year on this one.
Yeah.
And I think I got bored of building factories in space. I think that's a big factor. I think because I keep coming back to it. I obviously keep coming back to some sort of factory mining game, but nobody else wants it at Introversion. No one. So there's never a positive word ever said about the game I'm working on when I'm working on factory games. And so I just kind of have to. The only thing that can power me through is my own enthusiasm. And after about a year, it's run out. So I can keep going for a certain length of time. But on Prison Architect, after a year, we're all getting geared up and excited because we had something amazing on our hands and everyone loved it.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference, like to have everyone on board the team actually excited about the game we're making. I think that's a major factor.
Yeah. I don't doubt. So that is all we have for you this month. We hope you enjoyed it. Please let us know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. The more likes we get, the more likelihood we've got of Chris making another Space Factory game. So smash the buttons. If you want to play it, you can go to introversions.co.uk/prototypes and you can pick this game up along with the other, what are we up to now, 5 or 6?
This is number 6.
So along with the other 5 prototypes that we've looked at in this series, we ask for a $5 minimum donation, but you can pay whatever you like and we give it all to War Child. That is all from me and Chris this month. Take care, enjoy the brightening skies and warmer weather, and we will speak to you at the end of May.